Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name's Blake, this is Blake's Aquatics, and today we're going to take a look all around my fish room. We've got more than 40 tanks here today to look at. We're going to look at all sorts of things from unique little gouramis, wild bettas, and then also we're going to have a look at some staples such as guppies, angelfish, discus and the like. I'm really excited to bring this to you, and I've put a fair bit of work into it, so I hope you enjoy. If you do, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Other than that, I'll stop talking now. Let's get straight into the first lot of fish tanks. So right as we enter the fish room, we have here this 3-foot DIY rack that I built myself. On it we have my saltwater tank. This is the only saltwater tank that I have. It's a bit of a nano at 15 gallons or 57 litres. Down below we have a DIY Palludarium that I made, as well as a dry start method and a tank full of micro crabs. So let's have a look at all these tanks individually and have a little bit of a more in-depth conversation about what's going on in each of them. So first things first, let's discuss my little mixed reef here that I've got. I recently switched over to this Fluval Evo here, which is an all-in-one tank. So I've decided to just switch it over to the fully stock setup that they provide. I had this kit here anyway, so I figured I might as well try the light out. But as a result, we are dealing with a few algae issues and things like that, which you'll no doubt pick up. But regardless of that, in here we have some snails and cleanup crew. We also have a pair of coral banded shrimp. We have one Ocellaris clownfish, and there's also a royal dottyback in there somewhere. In terms of corals, I've got some fluffy moths, some zoanthids, a few different types, some xenia and some green star polyps, as well as this bubble coral here on the side. I've kept this little saltwater tank in various different forms over the last 3 years, and I have to say that I enjoy having a saltwater tank, but it's definitely not my passion. As you'll find, we'll go through this. I'm definitely more of a planted tank guy, and there's a lot of benefits that I like about plants that unfortunately I can't incorporate into this tank. This tank here, also being saltwater, is one of the only tanks that I actually do hand water changes on, so it is a little bit more hard work than the others. Though I do like to dip my toe in all of the waters per se, and I enjoy keeping a little reef tank. It's been a really good learning experience, and I've still got a ton to learn about the saltwater side of things. Moving down, we have 3 freshwater aquariums here. This one on the end is a little nano cube aquarium that I keep in here some micro crabs. These are the Australian native micro crabs, not the Thai micro crabs that you might have seen. These are Latin name Amarynlis lacustris, in case you wanted to look them up, or you could see them up close and personal in the video I did when I first got them. Unfortunately, that has been the only time that I've ever seen them. They immediately set up their little territories in amongst the base rock that I've got in there, and they're just super tiny, so I never get to see them. Moving along here, we've got a dry scape method that I set up a number of weeks ago, and it's doing phenomenally. It's probably ready to fill up, but it's just doing so well as a dry start method that I haven't felt the compulsion to, because once I do fill it up, that's when I've got to start to think about algae issues and things like that. So I'm quite happy to just leave it in this state, and maybe that's a thing that you might consider as well. You can always set up dry starts, and there's no rush to actually fill them up with water if you don't desire. The third one I've got over here is a bit of a DIY Palludarium that I set up. It's fairly simple. I just took a 2-foot tank that if you can imagine a 2-foot tank standing up, I just took the side panel off, siliconed it to the front, and then cut the edges. We attached this wicking material and cork background to it, and then we've planted some plants in there. It's gone pretty good. Some of the plants died basically immediately. Some of them have continued to do fantastic. So it has been a bit of a learning experience again, and if you want to learn more about how I put that one together, there'll be a card up above now that will link to those videos. In terms of stocking in that one, we just have a bunch of white clouds in there, and yeah, relatively easy, low maintenance setup this one. There's no real filtration in this one. There is a pump that pumps water up to the top and then feeds back through the plants. So the way that this one works in terms of filtration is that the nitrifying bacteria lives on the background, and that's basically how the ammonia is converted across to nitrate in this aquarium. Really enjoyable, low maintenance setup, and one that's a great weekend project if you're looking for something to do. We'll move along now and we'll check out the first of my 2 6-foot steel racks. So now here behind me you can see the first of my 2 6-foot aquarium racks that I've got running. They both run 3 layers high, so I do keep nano tanks up the top just so that I can actually reach and not have to get on a ladder every day, which would be really annoying. So keep that in mind if you do want to go 3 layers high with an aquarium rack. This first one here has 13 tanks, which we'll quickly run through. And in terms of the middle rack here, we have 5 2-foot tanks lengthways. So the first tank we'll look at here has my honey gouramis in it. It's a breeding tank, as you'll notice that most of these tanks here on this middle row are set up as, and as such, it's not heavily planted or anything. It has a little bit of wisteria, but mostly what makes up the plants in this tank is actually the roots from my marble queen, pothos, or devil's ivy. Now on this rack here, I keep a lot of devil's ivy and I just really enjoy the aesthetic of it. It also really helps with nutrient export, so it's a great ally to have in a fish room like this. So that's this tank here. Hopefully one day we'll get some breeding happening out of these honey gouramis, but other than that, just a really simple setup, low maintenance sort of tank, and yeah, we'll see how we go breeding these honey gouramis. Moving along, this aquarium here actually has no livestock in it for the moment. I was trying to breed something in it and it just wasn't successful in the end, so we'll try it again soon, but there's no livestock in the actual tank, although this is the first hang-on breeder box that we'll see here, and that's got some Apistogramma Growout fry in there. In terms of the escape in the tank, fairly simple. Once again, we've just got some play sand in there. I'm not actually a huge fan of play sand, so I would steer you against that if possible. Some good options instead are pool filter sand, and if you don't like the color of that, you could go with some sand that you buy from your aquarium store, or the ADA La Plata sand if you're feeling a bit luxurious. I'd recommend either of those against play sand if possible. Then we just got some pearlweed here at the front, and yeah, just a sponge filter running that. Just like every tank in this rack here, will be running on air from a sponge filter. In order to light these aquariums in these racks, this particular section here, I just have some hardware store floodlights, basically security floodlights that people have on their homes, and I find them to be quite an effective way to light multiple tanks that are next to each other, so consider that if you're looking to light your aquarium rack, although there are plenty of other options as well. The third one along here, we've got some Apistogramma Agassizii Fire Golds. We've got some golden Panchax, and we do have a zebra loach in there as well. These golden one Panchax have been excellent producers for me and have brought out quite a few different fry, which you'll see later on, and also fry that I've sold off. So yeah, been really happy with these guys, and I'd recommend them to beginners if you want to try your hand at a spawning mock breeder or something like that. The Agassizii Fire Golds have also been pretty good producers, and we have 2 more of the hang-on breeder boxes with fry from them, which we'll take a look at later in the video as well. Fairly simple scape. Once again, we've just got a terracotta pot here full of ADA Amazonia Light, and that's basically what I like to plant a lot of these breeder tanks with, is the terracotta pots, mainly because later on if I am trying to catch fry, then it's a lot easier to just pull everything out of the tank, and terracotta pots allow me to put things back in and not you know, have to replant and things like that. So I really like the mobility of terracotta pots, and I'd recommend them for any aquarium that you want to set up as a breeder tank. The next aquarium along here, we have some blue Panchax and some peppermint bristlenose. Really enjoy the peppermint bristlenose, and they've been a good producer for me as well. My colony just got so big that a lot of the males were fighting, so I split them into 2 tanks, and that's how they ended up in here. The blue Panchax are not quite as successful as the golden Panchax, but they are still quite young, so they've got a little bit of growing up to do before yeah, we start to get some production happening out of them. And then the last tank along this row of the first rack, we've got some Apistogramma Macmasteri down here, and in the breeder box we have some Apistogramma Agassizii Fire Gold fry. So yeah, pretty successful tank. I have bred the Macmasteri quite a bit. Actually the group in here are fry from the original pair that I had, but yeah, they sort of are conditioning up pretty well, and we might have to separate them out and make some more Apistogramma Macmasteris in the near future. Moving down, we have in this aquarium a pair of Praecox rainbow fish, or the dwarf neon rainbow fish, as well as a bunch of Daisy's ricefish. Once again, you can see in this aquarium the terracotta pot planting system, and yeah, this is a fairly low maintenance tank, just with some really nice blues through it, and yeah, I enjoy looking into this aquarium. Very peaceful, nothing to worry about here. This aquarium behind me is a divided tank, so in terms of dimensions it is 2 foot by 18 inches or 60 centimeters by 45 centimeters, divided in half. On this side we have standard Kribensis pelvicochromis pulcher from our friend Josh at Aquamate, and in the tank next door, or in the other section of this divided tank, we also have a type of Kribensis. We have the pelvicochromis sacromontis. These guys are wild caught, but unfortunately I could only get 3 of them, so we're trying to grow them out, but they look like they might all be ladies at this stage, so we'll see what happens there, and you'll have to watch this space. The standard Kribensis actually have some fry at the moment, so they're looking a little bit more colourful and are acting a little bit more aggressive than usual. This aquarium here usually gets used as a grow-out aquarium for angelfish. At the moment there's only about 5 or 6 because I've been selling out of there, but soon I'll take those out, put them in the main aquarium, and we'll put the adult pair in there and get some more fry. That's usually the function of this aquarium here. Also, we seem to have a bunch of Golden Wonder Panchax happening in here, so there might be about 2 dozen at the moment, but we'll have to find a new home for them, and yeah, we'll clear out the real estate in here to get some angelfish breeding happening again. Once again, planting in here using the terracotta pot system, and we just have some Amazon swords and some Hygrophila polysperma happening in here. With these tanks down here on the bottom level of the fish racks, it's just a little bit more difficult to view them, so I find that I use these as my more functional tank. And last but not least, this one here next door, inside the breeder box here, we have some Apistogramma Growout Fire Golds, the younger of the 2 batches. And then down below we have some Odessa Barbs and some whitefin Ornate Tetras. So both super active fish, and yeah, plenty of movement going on down there, and really enjoy the colors from especially those Odessa Barbs in there. Once again, we're using the terracotta pot system, but yeah, there's quite a nice big red tiger lotus at the back corner of this aquarium, which is good to see. Other than that, we have some Alternithera Renekii mini and an Amazon sword. So you can see in there that that yellowish plant is actually the Alternithera Renekii, which is usually a bright red, so that's just how it looks under lower light conditions. Moving up to the very top of the fish rack here, we've got 4 smaller aquariums, nano aquariums if you will. This one on the far right here actually has a pair of wild bettas. We have the Betta Imbellis pair in there, and they get along quite well and they're fairly peaceful, which is good to see. Pretty functional tank once again, not much in terms of decorations in there, just some catappa leaves or Indian almond leaves just on the bottom, just to get that tannin into the water, lower that pH down. So really simple tank once again. This one here behind my head is a little dragonstone aquascape here with some Monte Carlo carpeted through it, and in there we have some Youhiki Medaka Ricefish there. So Youhiki is the coloration of them, which is more of like a yeah, sort of caramel yellow color. So really nice looking Medaka Ricefish. And Ricefish I really enjoy because they are so cold tolerant, so you don't need to put a heater in there. At the bottom of this aquarium we have some yellow cherry shrimp. So once again, I'm keeping them unheated, but being at the top of the fish room, it doesn't get too chilly. The heat rises from all these other aquariums. So I find that the temperature in this aquarium doesn't swing as much as it would if this was on the ground, for example. Moving along, this aquarium here has my shell dwellers, my Neolamprologus multifasciatus. At the back we've got some Surrey stone, and at the front we've just got some shells. I recently did a video on how I prepared these shells for this aquarium, so if you're interested in seeing that, if you've ever wondered how people go and get shells and put them in their aquarium, then it might be worth checking out. But we've got 4 Neolamprologus multifasciatus in there, which was all I could get at the time, but I'm hoping we see some breeding action soon, and they've got plenty of growing to do as well. Down the end there we've got a scape that I just filled up, so there's no livestock in there yet. We're just waiting for the tannins to leach out of all that wood and the ammonia to leach out of the substrate before we put anything in there. And in any case, I haven't really decided what to stock this aquarium with, so if you've got some ideas, let me know down below what you'd like to see in this aquarium here. But we do have to get it to clear up and yeah, just cycle and all those sorts of things first. So that's it for this first fish rack. Let's jump across now and take a look at the second one. Okay, so we're over here at the second rack now, and it is set up a little differently to the first one. So for example, this rack here only has 8 aquariums on it, and that's because the middle and lower level of this rack here only has 2 aquariums each. We've got a 2.5 foot and a 3 foot aquarium, a 2.5 foot and a 3 foot aquarium. Then we've got 4 aquariums at the top, totaling 8. So to get started with this 2.5 foot aquarium behind me, we have in here my pride and joy, my pea puffers. If you're not aware, in Australia it's super hard to find pea puffers, and then they usually come at quite an expense. So I was really happy to pick up 4 of those. In terms of tank mates in there, we've got some juvenile peppermint bristlenose just growing out in there. And then we have a bunch of emerald raspberries as well, which are one of my absolute favorite fish. Downside, I was hoping that the pea puffers and the emerald raspberries both being in there would bring each other out, but it seems like they're both pretty shy, so as a result they both sort of hide in each back corner. Just a bit disappointing to see. I might have to experiment with some more brave fish, and we'll see if we can be able to see them some more. But overall, I really enjoy this tank, and this has got to be one of my absolute favorites here in the fish room. Moving along, we've got here my koi Tuxedo Guppies and bristlenose breeding tank. It's not looking the best at the moment. It's looking a little bit dusty and murky, and I think that's because the aqua soil in here is pretty old. It's pretty much down to a dust now, so it's probably about time I replaced it, because every time the bristlenose shuffle around and get ready for breeding or have a little scuffle, it basically kicks up all this dust, and even though there's basically 4 sponge filters in there, it just can't keep up with the murkiness in here. In terms of plants, we got this pearlweed that's absolutely taken over this whole aquarium. It's floating up here and it's planted down here, and yeah, I find it provides really great cover for baby guppies and baby bristlenose. So I'm happy to just leave it and let it go wild in here. In terms of line management of these guppies, I find that they've been real inconsistent breeders. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of work to do with those, but they do tend to pop out all of these blondie sort of coloured guppy fry. So with those, I take those and put them in another aquarium. We'll take a look at a little bit later in the video. Other than that, it's once again another set and forget type tank. The bristlenose breed and do their thing, the guppies breed and do their thing, and they both leave each other alone. And once again, we're lighting these tanks with just some floodlights from the local hardware store. And down here in the lower 2 aquariums, here we've got my Dumbo Dragon guppies here, which is a line that I've maintained for quite a number of years now, and one that I'm pretty proud of. They have also bred really stable for a long period of time, which is great. And then we have the other half of my peppermint bristlenose breeding colony there as well. So really fantastic tank, and once again, fairly set and forget. This is another jungle style aquarium. The Vallisneria has just taken over in there, but I'm totally happy for that to happen. And once again, it provides great cover for guppy fry and things like that. And this aquarium here on the other side has some platinum wrestling half-beaks in it, which is a really unique looking fish. Actually a live bearer, in case you weren't aware, but one that I'm really hoping to get some breeding out of soon. But at the moment I'm just conditioning them up, which seems to be doing pretty well. They're looking really fat and happy, and hopefully we get some babies happening soon. So platinum wrestling half-beaks in there. So moving up here onto the top tier of this rack here, we've got this little cube aquarium here that houses my honey blue eyes. These are another fish that I'm super happy that I've got here in the fish room, and one that did really well last year out in the summer tub. So I'm hoping that we can replicate that this year with even more success. And since last year I only started off with a trio, this year I'm starting off with 6 or 8. And yeah, I can't wait to get them out there, and hopefully we can make some more honey blue eyes. That's a Pseudomogil Melis. This one over here is another real successful nano tank there, and one that is really easy and low maintenance. This is sort of like no filter, no heater, Iwagumi style setup here with just the carpet of hair grass in there, and they do really well, and I sell quite a few really hardy Bloody Mary cherry shrimp out of there. Hardy obviously because they are just doing their own thing with no filter and no heater. Moving across here, we have my Blue Dream cherry shrimp in there, and they're in with about 15 pygmy cories, something like that. And pygmy cories are another fish that I really love, but yeah, it's been interesting to see with the pygmy cories. When I used to keep them in another aquarium with my chocolate cherry shrimp, they would school and be quite outgoing. In this aquarium up here, they seem to just hide in the corner, which is a bit of a shame because I really enjoy these fish and they're such cute little catfish. But in any event, they do really well in here with the blue cherry shrimp, and neither one bothers the other, so that's really great to see. And then the last one across there, moving along, we have sort of a riverbed type scape in there with just some river gravel, a piece of spiderwood, the coconut hut, and 4 sparkling gouramis in there. So really enjoy the sparkling gouramis. They can make a bit of a croaking noise too at times, which is pretty fun to hear. Kind of sounds like rocks being banged together, but yeah, hoping to get some breeding out of those guys soon. But another great little nano fish, and one that I really enjoy keeping. So that's it for the racks. We'll turn around here now and we'll check out this little shrimp and CPD tank here, which is one of my favorites as well. So this tank here houses my black cherry shrimp or chocolate cherry shrimp. That's how it started off anyway, and then I picked up one day about a dozen celestial Palludariums or galaxy rasboras, and I really fell in love with them. I found that they had really awesome coloration, and yeah, I came across this breeding box technique that I decided to sort of modify so that we could use it for these guys. The proof is in the potting here, because there's about 200 of them in there now, or something like that, and I find myself wanting to build a little army of CPDs. So really enjoy breeding the celestial Palludarium. And if you want to check out that breeding box technique, I'll put a card above now that you can check out as well. Other than that, we've got some clown killifish in there at the top, about 8 of those, and we also have some whiptail catfish in there somewhere as well. So fantastic little tank, one that I enjoy looking at quite a bit. And in terms of plants, we've got the Monte Carlo carpet happening. We've got some Alternithera Renekii mini. The Vallisneria is taking over once again. Yeah, and that about does it. We got some pieces of Anubias and things like that in there as well. But awesome little tank. Really enjoy how this one's coming along. This tank does get CO2 injection into it though, not very much at all, just 1 bubble every couple of seconds, something like that. But we also have here the Aquanest F8 light on it, which I found to be really fantastic. Moving across to the side here, we have another really awesome active tank that I enjoy looking at. This tank here houses my blue Kochu Tetras, Ember Tetras. We've got some Pseudomogil Gertrude in there, the spotted blue eyes. We've got some Colombian zebra plecos in there. We've got those blonde koi tuxedo guppies that I talked about earlier. And I think that's it, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was something else swimming around in there. This tank here is full of activity, and once again, you can see we've got the terracotta pot planting system happening in here. In terms of plants, we've got the wisteria, we've got some Hygrophila polysperma pink, we've got the ambulia there, Amazon swords, and a red tiger lotus that it looks like it's struggling a fair bit. But yeah, once again, really fun tank to sit and watch, and heaps of activity in there. It always looks like a super highway with every fish in there seemingly rushing to do whatever they need to do. So great little tank, and enjoy watching this one a lot. In terms of the light here, we've got sort of my DIY terracotta pot stand there, but that's because this is a 4-globe T5 setup here, and when I sat it on top of this acrylic here, it actually started to melt it. So we've just got it propped up with the terracotta pots for now, although I'd like to actually hang it one day, but we'll get there eventually. So next up, we'll look at my row of 4-foot aquariums that we've got here. So now we'll get into some of my larger aquariums. This one behind me is a 4x2x2, and it houses my Saratoga Lycardi. And housed with the Saratoga are a small school of striped silver dollars and a pair of orange-head Geophagus in there. So fairly peaceful tank once again, the Saratoga being the most likely to be aggressive, but I've found him to be really peaceful fish, and this tank's another one that's pretty set and forget. Substrate, we just got the pool filter sand, and we've got a big canister filter filtering this guy, and then some small sponge filters just as a bit of extra filtration. So really fun tank to sit back and watch, and yeah, this is my monster aquarium, if you will. For those of you that might be concerned about a 4x2x2 with the Saratoga, you're absolutely right, and I actually have a larger aquarium outside at the moment. I just can't fit it in here, and I'm waiting until I move house to actually upgrade this Saratoga to a larger aquarium, although he still does have a fair bit of growing to do. He can certainly turn around and do all those things, so yeah, no concerns there. This tank here now only holds my Jaguar cichlid And those of you that have been around the channel for a little while may remember that it used to hold a pair of convicts, a flowerhorn, a Jack Dempsey, and a Jaguar cichlid. But what happened was the convicts were always breeding, so they had one corner off to do their thing and defend and all that. And what actually happened is the flowerhorn, which was a female, and the Jack Dempsey, which was a male, decided that they would pair up as well. So they had the other side of the aquarium where they would continually lay eggs and defend and all that. So what would happen is the Jaguar was stuck in the middle with nowhere to go, and although it was probably the biggest and the most aggressive fish in the tank, it was constantly just walking into territories where there was breeding happening. And the Jaguar, being my favorite, is the one that I wanted to make sure nothing happened to. So I promptly sold the convicts, sold the flowerhorn, sold the Jack Dempsey, and now we're left with the Jag. But what has happened is he's gone all shy all of a sudden now that he's got no more friends, and he just always hides here behind the sponge filters there. So other than that, I really enjoy watching the Jag, and I'd love to one day trial him in with the Saratoga and the rest, but yeah, I'm just a bit nervous to do that at the moment because I really love the Saratoga and I really love the Jag, but I'd hate for either one of them to do any damage to the other one. So for the moment, this tank here is reserved just for the Jaguar cichlid. And then moving along, we have the first of my 2 4-foot planted tanks here. Both of these aquariums have pretty high powered lights, CO2 injection, and we've got the ADA Amazonia as the substrate in here. So I find that they grow plants pretty well, and I've got them fairly dialed in at this point. In terms of stocking, this one here behind me, we've got some blue sapphire angelfish, we've got some turquoise discus, we've got Siamese algae eaters for algae control, we've got some German blue rams, and we've got some Bozemanite rainbow fish. So a tank that I keep a little bit hotter than the rest, 29 degrees Celsius, which I think is around 81 Fahrenheit. And one that the fish are super colorful, and yeah, there's a great deal of activity in there. So this one here is my favorite in terms of stocking, probably. But this one here is my favorite in terms of plant success. So I have just started to incorporate the terracotta pot system in here, but in terms of plants, in this tank we have all sorts of things from red tiger lotus, dwarf aquarium lily, a few different types of Amazon swords. We've got the crypt wenti and all sorts of little stem plants and things like that. In terms of stocking in here, we've got a lot of rainbow fish. We've got the black banded rainbow fish, we have the splendida rainbow fish, the Irian red rainbow fish, and we have turquoise rainbow fish. We've got a fair few angelfish in here now. Most of these have started from the single pair, which is really cool to see them grow up to full size, you know, from being fry. We've got a fair few little cories in there as well. We've got some Julia cories, some Trilineatus cories, as well as a few other mystery cories that I've picked up along the way. Other than that, we've sort of got miscellaneous Betta, we've got a couple of rummy nose tetras, and other things just make their way in here over time and just never make their way out. But yeah, overall, really great and stable tank, and one that seems to do pretty well just on its own. So I really enjoy sitting back and looking at this tank as well. So that's it for this side of the room now. It's time to jump over the back there and we'll check out the last row of tanks that we have out here, and then we'll head inside for the last tank of all. We're nearly there. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. If you have liked the video to this point, it would really help me out to hit like and hit subscribe, and we'll keep going with the tour. Okay, so on this side of the room we have 9 tanks. There was never an intention to set up a row of tanks on this side, but that's how things happen when you're addicted to keeping fish. First one we'll get started off on here is a really fun way to do a growout tank. Okay, so what we've got going on in here is a bit of a scape that I put together because I wanted to put a scape together. I wasn't really thinking about what I would stock it with, so what happened was I put the scape together, and at the same time I had 2 pairs of Bettas spawning. So I figured, why not just put all the fry in here, let them all grow up together and see what happens, and that's pretty much what I've done. So in here we've got a lot of activity and a lot of color with 2 individual spawns of Bettas, and it's been really interesting to see things change and develop as time goes on. In terms of the plants, it's doing super successful, and this one here does get some CO2 injection into it. The light is, I would say, high powered, but it's not necessarily expensive. It's off Amazon, and I think it's called the Lumini Asta 120, so worth looking up, but it does sort of affect cameras a little bit, so be mindful of that if you want to film the tank that it is on. Other than that, this tank here is filtered by the world's smallest sponge filter. it is about that big, no word of a lie. And that's pretty much it. Of course, the plants do a lot of the filtration in here, and being able to acclimatize to the bettas growing up and increasing their bioload, that's really helped for this aquarium to establish successfully. So yeah, really enjoyable aquarium once again, and one that I've enjoyed seeing develop over time. Moving along, this tank here is another rimless setup. This one is a cold water setup, so we've got in here some paradise fish, some platinum Medaka ricefish, and some endlers. It's going through a bit of an algae battle at the moment, although not too long ago this was perfectly balanced, so I'm really not sure what's happened there, but I continually have to pull out this hair algae here, which is pretty annoying. Other than that, it's been fairly successful. I think what's happened is actually there's fairly slow growing plants in there, so that's probably contributing. Probably need to put some faster growing stem plants at the back to just help with that nutrient export. But other than that, a really enjoyable tank once again, and I've enjoyed keeping for the first time these paradise fish. So hopefully one day we'll get breeding them, and yeah, other than that, it's another great tank to sit down and yeah, gaze into. This tank down here is a tank that I just use for breeding. Very functional, there's no real decorations in it. At the moment I'm trying to breed these bettas that I won in a competition on Facebook not too long ago. So we've got a Dumbo Half Moon Betta, and it's actually, I believe, a sibling pair. So yeah, we'll try and breed those together, and fingers crossed it should be fairly consistent output in terms of fry when they do eventually breed. So should be a fun little project to watch, and stay tuned if you want to check out what happens in that space. In this aquarium up here, we have my pair of alien bettas. These are the blue version of alien bettas. Alien bettas in general are a hybrid of 3 different types of wild bettas. Usually I keep the male in this breeder box up here just because they're not quite as friendly to each other as the Imbellis, for example, but I keep putting him in there intermittently to just see how they go and what the temperament is like as I learn about these interesting hybrid bettas. In the other breeder box up here, we have some fry from some emerald raspberry breeding that I was doing recently, so really excited to grow those out and add them to my emerald raspberry collection. The scape in here is an interesting scape. It's battling algae as well at the moment, and the light on here is a Fluval 3.0. We do inject CO2 in here, but I think the problem is that a lot of the plants here are crypts and other slow growing plants that are really struggling to upkeep with the nutrient export. So we might once again need to get some faster growing plants in there just in order to keep up. Other than that, pretty successful scape, and I'm excited to see it progress. Hopefully the alien bettas get along so I can leave them in there together. Then I can take these hang-on breeder boxes off the front and actually view them a bit more effectively. And down here we have another fun little tank. We've got some licorice gouramis in there. These guys came in a mystery box, so I was really happy to receive them. And I'm trying to just breed them at the moment. They don't really take to prepared foods too well, so I'm feeding them freshly hatched brine shrimp, but another awesome little fish, and I've been happy to see those blue sheens start to come through on the tail, which is hopefully a sign that they're coming into breeding condition. So once again, I'm watching eagerly on these guys, and hopefully we can breed them. In terms of scape, we've just got a bunch of Amazon swords and stuff happening in there, and then just some leaf litter, because that is how they try to breed. They like to breed on the underside of surfaces, I'm told. So yeah, fairly low maintenance scape once again. Next up, this tank here is a 3-foot aquarium, and it houses my Betta sorority, as well as some Kero tetras, also known as the Emperor tetra. We have the black version and the blue version in here, and once again it's a really awesome tank to watch. We do inject some CO2 into this tank, and we just have some plants in the terracotta pot system once again. We've got pretty high quality Chihiros 3-foot light on there, which does a really great job of growing plants. I grow red root floaters really fast out of here, and I find myself basically throwing a lot of them out. But other than that, it's a really great aquarium, once again fairly stable and low maintenance. The Betta sorority I've found to be a pleasant experience. I haven't found too many dramas with it. They do occasionally scuffle with each other, but it's not really a bloodbath or anything like that. So yeah, pretty great tank once again, and something a little bit different from all the rest. And moving down here, we've got my 5 fantail goldfish in here. If you don't know the story behind these guys, I actually never really went back and kept goldfish apart from being a kid, so I wanted to do them justice and give them a go, knowing what I know now about the hobby. So I'm really stoked to pick up 5 of these fantail goldfish, and yeah, I can't wait for them to build on plenty of size, and I'm just enjoying watching them, and yeah, pretty straightforward little setup here. They're also great for when I net out duckweed. They really like to clean that up, so yeah, they come in handy like that, and it's great to be able to harvest some free food in the fish room. Another thing I'm interested in is how their colours change and develop over time. If you're not aware, goldfish do often change colour, so watch out for that. If you find the perfect goldfish in your fish store, just don't get too attached to it, because you might wake up one day and it's an orange fish all of a sudden, so keep that in mind. But yeah, as we near the end of this fish room tour, really happy to show off these 5 goldfish that I've got happening here. And then this aquarium, seemingly way off in the distance back there, is my bookshelf aquarium. So it is 1 meter long, or a touch over 3 foot long, but it's incredibly shallow, and I just thought it was the perfect tank to put my Michelin shrimp in. So Michelin shrimp are a combination between crystal red and crystal black shrimp, and then Taiwan bee shrimp. So a really interesting shrimp that you can get all sorts of combinations happening out of. And I've had them breed recently, but fortunately they only look like sort of crystal black babies at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see what happens as time goes on. In this tank I've got the driftwood coming up out of the water, and we've got some Java fern and stuff as the main plants going on in here. Wanted to keep it fairly low maintenance, because I find with shrimp, the less you disturb them, the better off they do. So I really try and keep my hands out of this tank and just feed sparingly and stuff like that, and I find that's the best way to keep shrimp. So really awesome little tank here, and it's really great to sit it right next to my computer here when I'm editing videos or doing live streams. I often turn to the side and just check out the shrimp, see what they're up to. So yeah, really awesome, enjoyable tank once again. And then the last aquarium that I've got set up in the fish room out here is this little shallow cube here. So this one here has some red and white Medaka rice fish in it. And this is a tank that I did really recently. This is no filter, no heater once again, and we have the dirted tank method happening in here, where underneath that sand cap is some organic potting mix, and it seems to do really well, and the plants have established themselves quite well. So I really enjoy this tank as well, and once again, super low maintenance setup, and that's pretty much how I like to do things out here. So that's all the tanks that I keep out here in my fish room. There is one more tank that is inside, which you're probably looking at now. It's in the middle of my living room, so there's always plenty going on around it. But in there we have some green neon tetras, some normal neon tetras, and some wild bettas, the Betta rubra. And these Betta rubra have fantastic coloration, really nice deep red color at times through the day. This tank here is once again very low maintenance. There's no filter on this one because I just wanted to minimize noise, basically, being that it's in the living room. We have a Chihiros C2 light on here, which I found to do really well. And yeah, once again, just a really well-established aquarium that is fairly low maintenance. I just water change it basically once a week with 20 or 30%, and other than that, it does really well. So that's the only tank that I'm allowed inside. I managed to get it in there because I used to keep it on my desk at work, but then when you know, when the disaster hit and all that, and everyone got sent to work from home, I had to bring it home, obviously, to feed them, and just quickly set it up there. So seemed to work out well, and yeah, there's been no real complaints so far, but I won't be pushing the boundaries on keeping too many fish tanks inside. Regardless of that, I enjoy having my space out here where I can do basically whatever I like with it, and it works well for me. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this fish room tour. I think we showed about 41 tanks in the end, and yeah, hopefully there was something for everyone there. Hopefully you enjoyed these. If you got any questions on anything whatsoever, please don't hesitate to drop them down below. But if you want to know what a plant is or something like that, make sure to put a time code with it so I know exactly which one you're talking about. Always happy to help out, and I really enjoy engagement down in the comments below. If you like this video and you're new to the channel It would really help me out to hit subscribe. Other than that, I'll catch you on the next one, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.